So I'm not sure what I'm going to title this video. It'll either be 5 reasons why you should learn Spanish or 5 ways to stay motivated in learning Spanish. Either way, I wanted to create this video because I know through the process of learning Spanish, I've had multiple times where I literally thought about quitting, thought about forfeiting all the time that I've invested in Spanish. And it came down to just either a lack of motivation or a lack of vision for what Spanish could do for me in my day-to-day life. Although I enjoy visiting other countries and meeting other people and traveling and all that kind of stuff, when I first started learning Spanish, as you all know, it wasn't something where I had some extrinsic motivation. It was by happenstance. So keeping that motivation has really been something that I've had to work at. And so in this video, I like to share 5 things that I think you may not have heard before that are reasons why you should learn Spanish, motivation tips in terms of keeping with your studies as learning Spanish. And again, I'm in no position to give advice, I'm just sharing my experience here. So one of the first things that I tell myself whenever I'm in a period where I'm like, dude, why are you spending so much time studying? Like, this doesn't make sense, why are you doing that? The first thing that I tell myself is I kind of make an analogy for myself, and I don't know if I'm making sense when I say this, but here's the analogy. People that go to the gym, that work out regularly, it would be foolish to ask those people, hey, why do you work out? You're not a professional athlete. You don't plan on competing in the Olympic Games. Why are you working out? All right. And if I just let that breathe for a minute, that sounds stupid. It's like, well, duh, working out is healthy. Like, obviously, he or she doesn't want to be an athlete, but they're working out because it's good for them. Well, when we get the question of like, well, why are you learning Spanish? Why are you doing that? Learning a language is beneficial biologically, physiologically. It's good for your brain. Okay, that's the first reason that I wanted to bring up. I know there are a lot of other reasons, cultural reasons, all those kind of things for learning a language, meeting new people. Those are all very valid and profound points for me. But one of the first things that I tell myself, that I have told myself, before, when I was in those slumps of like not wanting to study or not wanting to continue with my studies, is like you're literally helping your brain become stronger. You're fighting off diseases like Alzheimer's. You're expanding your mind biologically. Like, I don't want to get into the concepts of neuroplasticity and all this other scientific talk, but literally you're improving your brain's physiology by studying a language. So that's one of the first reasons why I think learning Spanish is beneficial. It's one thing that I constantly tell myself whenever I'm in a down period, and I think it's a valid reason that especially for those of us that can't travel all the time or that don't have immediate plans of leaving whatever country you're in to be fully immersed in an environment where you can practice Spanish. I think that's a great thing to keep in the back of your mind. Like, anytime I sit down and study, I'm essentially doing the mental equivalent of physical exercise in a gym. So the second strategy that I have, or the second tool, tip, whatever, to stay motivated in Spanish for me has been doing things that I genuinely enjoy to do in English and doing those same things in Spanish. So for example, I love music. I love music, love music, love music. And so over the year, just from studying and speaking to different people, I've been put onto a lot of different groups, a lot of different artists that I right now have strong musical connections to. Like, I genuinely listen to them every day. I've built connections with these artists, listening to their music. And so my point in saying that is that now if I were to just stop studying Spanish, it would force me to stop enjoying the music that I like from these groups, and I don't want to do that, right? And so it's like a way of tricking myself into staying motivated, because it's like, I don't want to stop listening to Danny Ocean. I don't want to stop listening to Ozuna or Chucky Town or like the Mexican rancheras, right? So sorry for the motorcycles, but my point is that has kept me motivated over the last year, because it's like, if I stop studying Spanish, I'm indirectly stopping myself or depriving myself from enjoying this good music that I like. And it doesn't have to only be music. It could be a sport, it could be a certain show, it could be anything. It could be, believe it or not, a person. Like, there are people that I've made connections with now that if I stopped learning Spanish, I would stop having as close of a relationship with them that I have. And so I think that's another thing that kind of anchors you into the language. Like, finding things that you enjoy that they will be difficult to give up if you stopped learning Spanish. So the third motivation tip, reason to learn Spanish, is travel. Now, Any video that I've seen about this, that's always in the video. Like, they always talk about, well, traveling. But I want to break this down from a logical perspective, and I'm sorry to those of you that don't live in the United States, but this is going to be a point that's directed at those of us that live in the United States. If you live in the United States, can you please, in the comment section, tell me, most people, again, I'm not talking about certain groups that, you know, people that have traveled abroad in college and all that. The average American, if they're going to vacation, they're going either to Mexico, the Caribbean, Jamaica, or a Caribbean Spanish speaking country, or South America. It's just where we travel to for the most part. And again, I have no data on this. I do know that Mexico is one of the biggest travel destinations in the world, and the majority of those visitors that visit Mexico are people from the United States. My point is, the most logical language to learn if you're going to travel using the traditional travel patterns of those of us that are in the United States is Spanish. And so in my experience, speaking Spanish, even just a little bit, enhances the travel experience by 1,000. There's so many things that I was able to pick up and learn in Colombia simply from the fact that, dude, you speak the language. Like, you understand what people are saying to you, little nuances in the culture and the society. People feel comfortable taking you to different places because they know at the very least you'll understand how to, I don't know, just speak up for yourself and speak for yourself in any situation. So my point is, it's the most logical, the most practical, the most useful language for someone that's living in the United States that's interested in traveling to the majority of the travel locations that we go to. Again, you want to cross the Atlantic, that's usually a more expensive trip. It takes much more time. And so for most of us, Spanish would be the most convenient and logical language for us to learn if you're someone that enjoys traveling. So piggybacking off of the third point, my fourth point is, and honestly, this is going to be biased to the United States, but my fourth point is, learning Spanish is the most useful, most practical language to learn if you live in the United States. I don't know anyone, I don't care where you live, I don't care if you live in the richest part of your city, the poorest, hoodest part of your city. Everybody, and I feel confident saying that everybody in the United States has been somewhere where they heard Spanish, where they had to interact with someone that only speaks Spanish, where if they knew Spanish in that moment, it would have benefited that situation. It could be on a small scale or a large scale in terms of making more money. So I'll give you some examples in my personal life, some recent examples that I've heard from my friends now that they know that I speak Spanish, and these, they're endless examples, and I'm curious to know if you all have any examples in your lives where, if before you started learning Spanish, if you had known Spanish, your life could have been benefited. Okay, so for me, these are just small examples, but when I was in college, I worked at Chuck E. Cheese. Those of you that know Chuck E. Cheese, I worked there for about a month. I had to quit, it was horrible, but I worked at Chuck E. Cheese. All of the employees, all of the managers spoke Spanish. Okay, if I had spoken Spanish at the time, probably would have stayed there a little longer. Not that Chuck E. Cheese is the best job, but probably would have stayed there a little longer, could have made more friends in that environment. It would have really enhanced that environment. The other thing, I did student teaching at a school that was like maybe 70% Hispanic. Anytime we had a parent meeting, I had to wait for the interpreter to come and interpret in the meeting and talk to the parents, blah, blah, blah. Another example, and this is in Atlanta, Georgia. Atlanta isn't even known for being a very, like, it's not known for being a city where you need to know Spanish. It's not like a city like maybe San Antonio, Texas, or some cities in Phoenix. I'm sorry, some cities in Arizona or something. So my point is, that is another case. Maybe 3 months ago, and this was before I decided to start speaking Spanish in public, I was in Home Depot and a guy was asking me in broken English, like, hey man, can you explain to me what faux blinds means? Like fake wood, like faux wood. My point is, there are plenty of examples. I have a friend that has a job where he consults people about their taxes, and he had a Colombian couple come in that only spoke Spanish. Everybody in this country has had instances where Spanish could have benefited you, could have been useful on a small scale or on a large scale financially. And so that's the fourth point. It's just practical, it's useful, it's very useful. And whenever I feel, I feel doubt in terms of whether or not I should continue, studying, I just keep that fact in mind. Like, if I really think back retrospectively, there have been plenty of times, and there will be plenty of times, especially with the changing demographics of our country, that Spanish will be useful. All right, and the fifth most important reason for learning Spanish to me, one of the things that gives me a lot of motivation is literally, I know it's the simplest thing, I know it's so simple. I know it's like, dude, the fifth reason, the most important is this, but it's getting to know, getting to learn more about becoming a guest in other cultures. Now, I will say this may be something that for me keeps me motivated because I'm a genuinely curious person. I remember going to college and meeting people from other parts of Atlanta, Georgia, not other parts of Georgia, not other parts of the South, not other parts of the United States, people that grew up on a different side of the city. And I would have so many questions about what the vibe is like, what are the schools like, what's the environment like, what's different on that side of town, what's different compared to what, you know, the part of Atlanta that I'm from. And so my point is, that alone used to pique my curiosity, like learning about somebody that grew up in the same city that I did 30 minutes away. Okay, could even be the same county. There are differences there that are interesting. Well, that is amplified times 1,000 when you are learning about a culture that's completely different from yours in a completely different country. Some of these countries, you can go on the north side of the country, there's a completely different culture, completely different lingo, completely different lifestyle than on the south side of the country. And so I'm constantly like a fly on the wall inside of different cultures, right? Going through wormholes on YouTube of finding videos about the history of different cultures and different problems that people that are inside of the country might be discussing or like. So my main point in this fifth point is this, and hopefully I can summarize it with an analogy. I don't know if when you all were kids, if you ever visited a friend's house for the first time, but for me, I remember visiting a lot of friends' house for the first time, and one thing that I always noticed was that every family does things differently. There's a different familiar culture in every home. So I remember being a kid going to a friend of mine's house and their parents tell me like, hey, look, Michael, here we do this, we don't do this, we do this like this, we do this like that. And what that forces you to do, at least for me, what it forced me to do as a kid that was curious, is to look like, well, why do they do it like that? And I would ask my friend. And again, hopefully you can catch my analogy here with the language and the culture with Spanish. But I would ask my friend, I'd always ask my friends like, hey, why do y'all do it like that? Well, my mom says this, my dad says this, and that's why we do that. And if it made sense to me, I'd be like, wow, okay, that's something that I could take home to my family. Why don't we do that, right? And at the same time, there were things that I saw at my friends' houses that I was like, my parents do that better. Like, I don't think that's, like, for me personally, that's not how I would like things to go. And so hopefully you get my point. Learning Spanish has allowed me to look at myself and say, all right, the culture that I was brought up in the United States, there are some great things about this culture. There's some great things, some very powerful things, some things that I'm extremely proud of. But there are also some things that are not inherently good. There are some things that are taught to us that are not things that I personally feel like I would value had I not been born here. And so, like, some things like the obsession with money and just like consumerism and all that kind of stuff. Again, I'm not bashing our country, the United States. I love it, but my point is, learning the language has forced me to do some introspection and really think like, all right, some things from my culture are great, I want to keep those, and there's some other things from other cultures that are great that I'd like to take and implement into my life. So I really never know how to end these videos. I always say I hope this video wasn't too long. Hopefully it was informative. I know that these videos don't get as many views as me going out speaking Spanish, but again, hopefully this can provide you with a little bit of value. If you have any other major, or not major, but sorry, helpful motivation tips, if you can, leave them below. Hopefully this helped. Because I even at times still now, you know, you all can see my Spanish level. At times I'm like, should I spend time studying tonight? Like, it's fine. Like, I'm at a level where I'm fine. I don't need to keep improving, but keeping these things in mind help me to stay motivated. So hopefully this helped. If you can, leave a comment below and let me know what you think, and I hope to speak to you all in the next video.